Hi everybody, TJ Mack of Vintage Cards and Nostalgia here, and in today's video I'm going to talk some about Steve Garvey and show off some of the graded cards I have of him in my collection. But before I do that, I just want to share with you this wonderful display I put together of some of the stars of the National League that I grew up watching and admiring, especially Dale Murphy and Steve Garvey and Dave Parker. When I was first getting into baseball in the early 80s, these were the players that I embraced, the guys that I would check the box scores to see what they did the night before. And if you had asked me back then if Garvey and Parker and Murphy were going to be in the Hall of Fame, I would have quickly said yes to that, because all three of them were, at one time maybe the best player in the game, especially Parker and Murphy. I think for a couple of years can certainly say that. Then, of course, you have Pete Rose, who was another one that certainly would have been in the Hall of Fame and would be if he had not been on baseball. And then Reggie Smith was also a very good player back in those days. And I'm going to talk a little bit about him in this video as well. But Steve Garvey is one of those players I just really gravitated towards as a kid. He looked like Superman to me in that tailored baseball uniform with his athletic build, the perfectly coiffed dark hair, and he had that bright white smile. And Garvey was the ultimate good guy, clad in Dodger white. And this 1976 Sport magazine summed it up best. What could be more appropriate? Apple pie, the flag, and Steve Garvey. Now, Tommy Lasorda remarked that if Garvey ever came to date my daughter, I'd lock the door and not let him out. Even in Cincinnati, Pete Rose Jr. came to dinner one night wearing a Steve Garvey t-shirt until his father made him change it into a Pete Rose t-shirt. I realize Steve Garvey may never make the Hall of Fame, but for those of us who grew up with him, he was one of the players in the National League that was just a superstar, and he was the face of one of baseball's most storied franchises. He was frequently seen playing in October, where he excelled on the biggest stage. In an era where there were only two division winners from each league making the playoffs, Garvey played in a remarkable 55 postseason games. He batted .338 with 11 home runs and 31 RBIs, winning 2 National League Championship MVPs. He also played in 5 World Series, where he batted .318. Now, if we didn't see enough of Garvey on the national stage in October, we were treated to a regular dose of him in July, as he appeared on our TV sets for 10 Midsummer Classics, where his teams went 10-0, and he won 2 All-Star Game MVPs. I read an article in the online site, The Desert Sun, that said, in some ways, Steve Garvey is their Major League Baseball version of Forrest Gump. My guess is that he's the only baseball player who was on the field for 3 of the biggest events in Major League Baseball history. The day Hank Aaron hit his historic home run, number 715, to pass Babe Ruth, Garvey was there as a first baseman, batting 7th for the Dodgers. When Pete Rose got hit number 4,192 to pass Ty Cobb, Garvey was there that day, batting cleanup and playing first base for the San Diego Padres. And when Reggie Jackson hit 3 home runs in Game 6 of the World Series, Garvey was there watching them fly over his head at first base for the Dodgers. In his 19-year career from 1969 to 1987, he was not only a witness to history, but made it himself when he passed Billy Williams to become the National League leader in most consecutive games played with 1,207, which is still a record. Overall, he is 4th in Major League Baseball history. Now, Garvey felt his durability is what made him the player he was. His goal was to get 200 hits every season, and he was successful in doing so 6 times. There are only 10 players in Major League Baseball history who have done it more times, all of who are in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, as you can see here on his 1971 Topps first card, it states third base. He came up as a third baseman, but had difficulty fielding the position due to a college football injury. So it was difficult to find a place for Garvey in the lineup. In 1973, Dodger manager Walter Alston was looking to get Garvey's hot bat into the lineup, so he asked him if he ever played first base before, and Garvey responded quickly, "Sure I have." And the rest is history, as the Dodgers had one of the best infields ever for the rest of the decade. Garvey even went on to win 4 Gold Gloves. In spite of winning the 1974 National League MVP, one of the knocks on Garvey early on in his career was that he didn't flash much power for a first baseman. Now, in 1977, new Dodgers manager Tommy Lasorda wanted some of his players to focus on hitting more home runs, with Garvey being one of them. Well, that year, the Dodgers, for the first time in Major League Baseball history, had 4 players hit 30 or more home runs. Garvey finished with 33, Reggie Smith slammed out 32, and both Ron Cey and Dusty Baker had 30. While Garvey was a fan favorite, his squeaky clean image rankled some of his teammates. In 1978, pitcher Don Sutton said in an interview, "All you hear about in our team is Steve Garvey, the All-American boy. Well, the best player on this team for the last 2 years, and we all know it, is Reggie Smith. As Reggie goes, so goes us." Reggie doesn't go out and publicize himself. He doesn't smile at the right people or say the right things. He tells the truth, even if it sometimes alienates people. Now, 5 days passed without controversy, but on August 20th, as the Dodgers prepared to play the Mets at Chase Stadium, Garvey expressed his displeasure to Sutton over his published remarks. "We're a team," he reminded the pitcher, adding, "If you have something to say to me, say it to my face." Now, there are different interpretations of the events that followed, but all parties agree that within moments, Steve Garvey and Don Sutton fell to the floor in a battle royale, clawing and scratching each other. The press dubbed the incident the grapple in the apple. Milton Richmond, who covered the incident for United Press International, recalled seeing that Sutton leaped at Garvey and shoved him into the lockers. As 4 of the large players on the team separated the two, Joe Ferguson remarked that if the fight continued, maybe they'll kill each other. In spite of the controversy, Garvey continued to produce until leaving the Dodgers as a free agent in December of 1982. He helped get the Padres to the World Series in 1984, winning the NLCS MVP in the process. Unfortunately, they lost the World Series to the Tigers. Injuries then began to slow him down in later years, and a damaged tendon in his shoulder helped lead to his retirement in 1987. So in my collection, I have all the Steve Garvey base Topps cards from 1971 to 1985 that are graded, and then I also have ungraded versions of his 86 and 87 Topps cards in my sets, but I don't plan on buying those graded copies. But here you see first the 1971, 72, and 73, and it's very interesting that he's shown on the 73 Topps with Wes Parker, who was the Dodgers' regular first baseman prior to Garvey taking over. Bottom right corner, you have his 1974 Topps card from his MVP year. Garvey has one of the most visually spectacular run of cards. Along, though, with his 1974 Topps is his first solo cover on Sports Illustrated, which is a newsstand issue that my father-in-law purchased back in 1975. It's a beautiful copy and a stunning display piece. You have a photographic technique that I've talked about in the past called the bokeh effect, blurring out the background, helping draw your eye to the Dodgers first baseman. Now, interestingly, the bokeh effect can also be seen on the 1974 Topps card as the crowd is blurred out, bringing the image to Garvey with bat in hand. Next, we have the 1975, 76, and 77 Topps cards, all showing the All-Star designation. What I like here is you have one with him in a posed batting shot in the 75 Topps, and then you got a couple fielding images in 76 and 77. The All-Star theme carries over to his 78, 79, and 80 Topps cards as well. And again, you can just see how photogenic Garvey is on all these cards. Just a wonderful run. Here's the 81, 82, and 83 Topps cards. The 83 Topps being his last Topps card with him on the Dodgers. In the 83 season, as I mentioned before, he was actually on the Padres at that point. My last three graded Garvey cards are the 83 Topps traded, his first Padres card, the 84 and 85 Topps. Garvey said that the brown Padres uniform made him look like a taco compared to the classy Dodger whites. The career of Steve Garvey, in my mind, cannot be measured in hits, home runs, and championships. His magnetic charisma played a pivotal role in ushering baseball through the transition from the 70s to the 80s. Whether you love him or hate him, for my generation, what Steve Garvey did mattered. I don't need a group of stodgy sports writers and stats geeks who fill out Hall of Fame ballots to tell me that. You can't tell the story of baseball without the durable and consistently excellent Dodgers first baseman. For that reason, I'm proud to have his cards showcased in my collection. Everybody have a great weekend.